All right. So when we're under the ticket general settings service level agreements, we have a couple of options under the general settings. Track SLA response times and track SLA fix by times. Define your response. Your response typically is the first response or first email sent by a human being to the client. That first response can be sending the link to schedule with a technician, but typically it's, I've seen it, we've assigned a technician, we can automate that with an action, but in general speaking, an automated response is not a response. A new ticket acknowledgement is not a response. Clients want to know that a human being has looked at their ticket, has assigned it, and scheduled it. The SLA override, we want to choose that based on the ticket type. Our default SLA is going to be dependent off of the type, so we don't need to select anything there. We're going to use the server time zone as defined back up in the workflow. I don't like my technicians de-escalating the priority of a VIP escalation when the VIP escalation policy is in use. That policy is set under the customers, under the users specifically, and will escalate the SLA. In my opinion, it should only go up one. A SEV1, priority one, critical ticket, however you or the client refers to those, is something's down. Somebody on this team absolutely needs to stop what they're doing to go fix whatever is broken. A SEV2 is severe degradation of business services, but there's a workaround in place. A SEV2 should be solved by the end of business today. So when we're escalating a VIP up to a SEV2 or a SEV1, we're really removing the urgency behind that. Because a VIP user with a SEV1 that's an actual SEV1 needs to be handled as such. But a VIP user that needs toner put in his printer, that's going to completely remove the urgency surrounding a priority 1, priority 2 ticket. So a ticket should come in as a P4, which is low. And then, in my opinion, should be bumped up to a P3 with a VIP escalation at most. That saves the SEV1, SEV2 critical and high priority tickets for things that require high priority. Does that make sense? The behavior of the SLA timer is simply referring to the timer that's up in the top right. Do we want to show the time that's remaining or the time remaining that on a ticket that has not been breached? The least time remaining is my preference because if it's been breached, it tells me how long ago it was breached. I don't like to include seconds in an SLA target countdown, and I don't allow editing the SLA targets on the ticket details. What that means is that when I'm in a ticket, I don't want it updated up here. Does that make sense? Once it's set. Once I triage it, my impact and my urgency is going to set my priority. So if it's company-wide issue and it's a high priority, my priority is now critical. But if it's only a single user affected and it's medium priority, it's going to be low. We can set the agreement at this point on the triage just to override if we need to. So including the seconds in the countdown header widget, what it's talking about is up here. I don't really care about the seconds. I want to know hours and minutes on the response and resolution. Notification for first and second warning. We have a couple of options up here. Before resolution target or the percentage of SLA response and resolutions. In my opinion, professionally, the most important SLA to hit is the response time. Clients can handle a couple of days before we get to their service request. But if I submit a service request and I don't receive a response within a couple of hours by the end of business today, at minimum, in my opinion, SLA has not been hit. Every client deserves a response today. So we can set a notification warning when the SLA is going to be breached. The first is at 75, the second is at 90. From this, we can create a notification under the notifications and the configuration to either notify a Teams channel, a Slack channel, an email, or a notification up in the top right corner here that the ticket's going to be breached. There are very few notifications that I use. This is one of them. Because if there is a ticket that is about to be breached in response, I take that more seriously. Most MSPs will agree to a response time in their master service agreement. Now, the resolution time becomes an internal target. I expect the P1 to be closed out within 4 hours if possible. I expect the SEP2 to be closed out by the end of the day, pending it came in at a reasonable hour. SEP3, priority 3, is 2 or 3 business days. Take your pick. Best in class will do it in 2. Smaller teams, maybe 3. And severity 4 should be done by the end of the week or 5 business days. There's an the response settings. After I physically respond to the ticket, do I want to show that the response has not been set when doing an action? What does that look like? If I triage this, and then I go to email the user. Okay, make a liar out of me. Typically, in our own system, we get a notification that says that this ticket has not yet been responded to. Would you like to apply the response? And you hit yes. Why would I want that box popping up?
Because it's giving you a notification that ticket needs a response.
That's right. Now, up in the top corner, because my response target was just hit, simply because I set it in the email user to log a response on the action, it logged it for me, stopped it. So in our own instance, the only thing that is going to stop the SLA response target is an email to the end user. And I do that on purpose. MSPs may want to log a response when the first time entry hits. But my question is, has the end user been notified that you began work? Because if they weren't, I've got two problems. End user was never communicated with, and we're working on systems with no authorization. Does anybody have any thoughts on SLA response and why I am so heavily opinionated? We'll go with that.
I don't think I have any questions, but it's obviously just going to differ based on clients regarding what specifically they have on their MSAs.
It is. I
Okay.
never send a response email. I do want to hide the respond actions from end users. Some clients may want their end users to see the time, how long it took us to first response.
Respond actions are hidden.
I don't allow editing of response data, and the show respond button will actually show a button right here before the reassigned. It's white and it says respond. I don't like that because that enables us to stop the response time without even touching the client. So the response behavior for actions is two options. I can mark this ticket as responded once the action is clicked, or I could mark the behavior for action when the action is saved. And those may be two very different times.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
The response behavior for actions can be set when the action button is clicked, meaning if I click email user, it marks it as responded. But what happens if I click email user to go enter notes? Or I add time, which shouldn't really mark a response, to go add notes, and it takes me a half an hour. What did I respond when I clicked the action, or did I respond when I sent the email?
When you sent the emails,
So we have two options in Halo. Respond when the action button is clicked or when the action button is saved.
hey, that makes sense.
Saved is the better one that
Yeah.
I see.
That can get you in trouble.
When you're legally bound by that, yes. The SLA hold reminders. This is when we're sending, I believe it's email ID. Let me check before I. It's this guy, SLA hold. So we do want to send an SLA hold reminder. That is best practice. This enables our technical teams to work on the clients who are responsive or scheduled without adding the additional overhead of responding physically every 2 days. Now let's do the math here. You get 100 tickets in, or your technician has 100 tickets. They need to respond to your client every 2 days. It takes 3 to 5 minutes to respond to the client. That means I need to come into the ticket, read the history, email user, draft an email, hit send, come back out to my tickets, and then go to the next one. 3 to 5 minutes. our technical teams can spend up to an hour or two emailing your clients every 2 days. But why that's important is because that hour or two of their billable time is usually worth between $150 and $200 an hour. So if we mathematically could get 5 techs billable for, say, 75% of that time at $200 an hour, we got $350 in billable time per tech times 5. And that's why we set up the SLA hold reminders. Now this is in 24 hours. So I want to notify the client every 48 hours, and 336 is 14 days. Depending on the business that we're working with,
336 hours is 14 days.
14 days can be a little excessive. Typically, if we're going 14 days, they're going to get notified 7 of those 14 that we're waiting on. We want it to be taken seriously, but we don't want them so annoyed that they create an email rule to filter our emails out. So best in class is 48 hours. And typically on software problems, I typically do 14 days. And if you take a business like ours who only uses the software once or twice a month, that makes sense. 14 days is the maximum I'd set that at. But typically at 14 days, I'll notify every 72 hours instead of 48. So 3 days instead of 2. But a more common one is 7 days without a response for IT. Now, why is it so different between the two? Software that's used every day and technology that's used every day. When somebody puts in a request, it's typically for something that they're using frequently, right? Using the workday hours is going to use the workday hours of the agent that is assigned. So we have 2 different time zones on this call, MST and EST. Gozynta Consulting operates in Eastern Standard Time. If we use the holiday work hours and that agent is assigned to Mountain Standard Time, it is going to adjust this to Mountain Standard Time. If there is no agent assigned at all, then it's not going to use anybody's workday hours, and the SLA hold reminder simply won't send. So I typically recommend leaving the setting off. I do want to notify the CCs that we're waiting on a response. And I do not want to send SLA closure reminders from tickets that are excluded from SLA. That doesn't make sense. By default, this SLA hold, highlight tickets on hold, is enabled. When you're getting going on this, seeing tickets on hold in red can really help you make sure that your statuses are adhering to your SLA policies. I will typically disable that once I confirm that my statuses are moving my SLA, whether it's on hold or not, correctly. Does that make sense? It is a great troubleshooting tool, but can be very distracting. in everyday use. And what that looks like without it is just everything's flat. Make sense? The out of hours settings. So if a client emails us out of hours, either after the hours that we set in the work days. So if we're working hours are 9 to 5 and somebody sends me a message at 5:30, do we want to escalate that to a SAV 1 or 2? That is not best practice. We do have options here to only apply the out of hours priority for tickets logged by end users or email. Or we could use a separate email template for new tickets logged out of hours. And that email template is already in emails. New ticket logged out of hours, 150. Fair? Now there's a notify an on-call agent of new priority 1 tickets. When this is enabled, you have to come in and select the agent on call. So normal MSPs operations will have a rotating on-call schedule so that each weekend a technician is on call. Some MSPs will have 2 weekends on and then 4 weekends off, 2 weekends on, depending on the team size. The on-call agent must be applied in this setting every time the on-call agent changes. Does that make sense? Operational level agreements, OLAs, we don't worry about before we go live. OLAs support your SLAs. So I want you to think systematically what needs to happen for me to get a response. Somebody needs to look at the ticket, triage the ticket, dispatch the ticket, and then my agent needs to see the ticket and then respond to the ticket before my SLA response is hit. Now, the best way to do that is to identify the time it's going to take to adhere to that SLA response time. So if we expect our triage and dispatch to triage and dispatch in 10 minutes, we will configure the OLA to dispatch and triage that ticket within 10 minutes. And the OLA is captured under the workflow rules, which means that your SLAs must be set up before we get to workflows. We can set up OLAs based off of a workflow stage or a workflow step. Does that make sense? Now, we teach that as we go live with Halo, we have a standard workflow. It is triage, working ticket, quality assurance, closed. If we have a client that wants ticket, time to triage, time to dispatch, time to working ticket, we can set that up in the OLA. And we're going to do that based off of action steps. So our triage dispatch stage may be 2 steps: triage, dispatch, and then working ticket. And I will show you what that looks like in a little bit. Typically, when I speak with MSPs or ITSPs, OLAs is a foreign concept. And what I hope is that we understand that SLAs are client facing and promise times to respond. We see better customer satisfaction when a ticket has been responded to promptly and resolved quickly. And if it can't be resolved quickly, there's consistent communication from the technician that they're working on the ticket. Does that make sense? Once we go through the general settings of the SLA, we set up our SLA. Most MSPs have typically either request, which we change to standard, and a 24-hour if they are 24-hour working. The standard SLAs is always within our default working hours as defined in our company's time. We can set this to set the work hours or the agent's working hours instead of the end users. We will want to track SLA response and SLA fix. Now that means that we can override the general settings here. The active is whether we can use it or not. And we have some settings down here that I'm going to go through, but I typically don't use for various reasons. Resetting the respond by target each time the end user updates a ticket is better handled on an OLA versus an SLA. SLA is a promised response and fixed by times. Reset the respond by target when the approval process is completed. We've already responded to the ticket. So there are some use cases where the approval process is the first contact, right? That's typically a change request ticket type that we would put that on. Reset the respond by target when opening a ticket from the call screen. That's here, new call. Logging a call. This is just a different way to log a ticket. Say I get a customer that calls in. I have the call. It's logging my time that I'm on the phone. I can either log a ticket or resolve it. And then enter the call summary in the notes. It's a great way when we're handling incoming phone calls to log the tickets quickly and accurately. Does that make sense? Now, I am not a fan of this next section. Status after auto release, which we set up in the statuses. I don't like ticket statuses that auto release SLA hold. Well, once it is on hold for waiting on the client, unless the client responds, so there's no reason that ticket should be coming off of SLA hold. We can change the status after it's been breached. That can be used in MSP bots to track breached SLA, but we also have metrics on breached SLA and how long it was breached for before the response. So while it's a great visual cue that the ticket's been breached, we should be watching the queue and know that it's been breached without that status change. That may help smaller clients with minimal resources to quickly identify a breached SLA response and address it. I don't like changing the status after the first level has been reached or after the second level is reached. I'd rather notify via Slack or Teams. We have the ability to send SLA reminders for tickets within this SLA and show timer instead of the SLA bar on tickets. The SLA reminder for the tickets with this SLA, why wouldn't I want SLA reminders going out? There are some proactive tickets that we have to complete on a week-to-week basis that may not have an SLA defined in our MSA, but it may become an internal target. It may be an alert that we received that I don't want to send SLA reminders on those alerts. It's not the client, it's us. So we use these settings with great caution. Make sense? Now we get into the nitty-gritty of the SLA. In this one, we have defined 5 levels: critical, high, medium, low, no SLA. Oftentimes, you'll hear me call this a P1 or a SEV1, P2, SEV2, P3, SEV3, P4, SEV4. Make sense? Response target for critical and high ideally would be within the hour. But remember, your SLA response is exactly what you have set in your master service agreement. So if you've agreed to contact your clients within 2 business hours, then that needs to be here. It is not possible to log a response to a client consistently in 15 minutes. That requires that an agent is not doing work, is not in the middle of a ticket, and thinking that you may or may not have a dispatch, to look at the ticket queue, to identify the ticket out of the 10 that came in, to respond in that 15 minutes. It's not possible. It's important to set realistic goal for our teams. Because if we're constantly missing targets, that only degrades the morale of the team. Does that make sense? Brian, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I'm listening and I'm following along. Sometimes I'm just repeating. I have to repeat it to myself to make sure that
So when we set these up, we use the priority red, orange, yellow, green, black. We're always going to be using the workday, the SLA workdays. Target time set, whether it's in hours or days. You have options to automatically extend the response target after the end of the working day, or delay starting the SLA until the next working day after a particular time. For a SEV 3 and 4, those are great options because we're not going to respond to those until we get back in, right? So we're going to delay the start until the next working day until we start at what, 8 a.m.? This is all dependent on what's set in the master service agreement. I always prompt for a reason to be entered when the response target is breached, as well as for the resolution target is breached. Questions?
I do have one going back to the SLAs where we send them every 48 hours and then we close the ticket out in 14 days or 7 days, depending on the client. Is there an email that's sent out to them letting them know, hey, this ticket is being closed?
Yes.
Okay,
So we set that up in the ticket general settings before we get to this point.
okay,
It's important that enabling SLA hold reminder emails is either checked or not, because the next step that we do is statuses.
okay,
Enabling SLA hold reminder emails will automatically put in a resolve status. If that resolve status is system use and cannot be deleted. If it is not, if the ticket is not in that specific resolve status, and you send an email, which is 327 tickets pending closure. Typically, there's a check mark or X in here that's gonna say yes or no whether we want it to close. Once it is closed, if resolved, it gets email ID 14. If it is closed without closed automatically, it's sending ID 41. Now, in the last few minutes that we do have, now that we've set our SLAs, it's time to set our statuses. So waiting client, we put on hold, if not already on hold. And yes, we want to enable sending hold reminders in the status. If an end user updates this, I want the user update to release from SLA hold and put it back on us. So the way we work the SLAs can be either with an action, but more commonly, the way that we set it up is a status. The status will dictate the SLA. Now, I often get am I blind? Does anybody see a resolve status? I turn it off. I feel stupid.
It's not there. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's not there.
Is end user closure turned on?
Yeah. Thought so.
I was trying to log in to check, but I'm getting an error when I try to log into the consulting database now. Oh, here we go. Now it's working. That's the only thing I can think of. Right there.
It's not.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joseph.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. So now that our resolve status is here, you're going to notice that there's no delete button because when we're on SLA hold, if it is not in this status, the confirm closure and deny closure dollar variables will not work. Instead, you'll get a pop-up message that says error that this ticket is not able to be closed at this time. And there are only 3 statuses in the systems like that: waiting vendor, or as it comes out of the box, it's with vendor, with supplier,
And we change it to waiting.
and that's specifically used when we've emailed the supplier. And then closed, there's only one true close section email in Halo.